And we are recording, returning, and long time no see, Dr. Stephen Hatfill on Monday, May 1st, 2023 at 5:44 p.m. Eastern Time. And Dr. Hatfill has been on here a couple times before. We've talked about your book, which is Over Your Shoulder, 3 Seconds Till Midnight, and that link is in the description. You've also come on here with Dr. Ken Alabeck, and
Yeah.
I think you've come on here a couple other times. And I was just telling you before we started recording, you just popped into my head the other day. I was meditating and just right there. And I was like, I'm gonna shoot Dr. Hatfield an email. And I got to you and you're like, yeah, I'm down. I was like, tomorrow. And you're like, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. So,
Do it.
Dr. Hatfield, as I rudely use my phone and post the live link, could you please introduce yourself to all the new listeners?
Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Hatfill. I'm a physician, medical specialist in a biomedical science. Um, Worked on the Ebola virus for several years. Um, Spent all of 2020, well, from February 3rd, 2020 till January uh, 6th or 7th in the White House, working under Peter Navarro on the problems of the national pandemic. There we daily fought with Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Stephen Hahn, to follow the correct national pandemic plan, which was early drug treatment, not vaccines. And it was clear that you could not vaccinate the nation out of a virus like SARS-CoV-2. I call it the COVID-19 virus. It would be impossible. The virus was undergoing clade mutations every several weeks. By the time you could even possibly get the necessary percentage of the population immunized, the thing would have escaped the vaccine. These are RNA viruses, and this is what they do. They're constantly mutating. This is a survival advantage for them. So even faking it would be possible, even with conventional vaccines, to get yourself out of this is a fool's errand. And then the experimental messenger RNA, they're not vaccines, they're pseudo vaccines. It's a biological product. And never before tried in humans. The drug companies were so hungry that, well, it's just turned into a big mess. A few months ago, well, right at the end of 2020, some very, very top-notch data scientists. One is an editor at the British Medical Journal, one's at Stanford, went over the clinical trial data that Pfizer wanted to hide for 70 years and then had to give it up and is reluctantly giving it up. And their findings are that in the clinical trials that were done for Pfizer and Moderna, that it was riskier to suffer a serious adverse vaccine event, a life-changing vaccine harmful event with disability. It's much riskier to take the vaccine than it was to be unvaccinated and catch COVID-19.
Yeah.
There was no health to risk benefit, health to harm. They did nothing. And in fact, we now know if you're fully vaccinated and fully boosted, that it's easier for you to catch the virus. You're going to have a more severe pattern of disease. And now we're seeing all these other side effects, and some of these are absolutely frightening. And we don't know what's happened to the babies. They started vaccinating 5-month-olds to 5-year-olds, and then children, and then young adults, and the incidence of myocarditis, inflammation of the heart that we're seeing. These things never should have been given to human beings. So we've had this shoved down our throat with mandates, and I'm sorry, but idiots on two separate COVID-19 White House task forces. The current one, Dr. Jha, doesn't even think hydroxychloroquine works at all. Now, nobody's that stupid. There's almost 500 papers written now showing overwhelming efficacy if you take the drug early on, like with any drug.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a paper cut and you let it get septic and you don't do anything about it, and it happens to be like a particularly nasty staph infection, you stand a good chance of losing your finger.
Yeah.
Whereas if you popped a few antibiotics, kept on it for a couple of days, end of story, nothing happens. It's the same as a fire in your kitchen. You've got a grease fire. It's roaring up. You don't phone the fire department and sit back.
No.
Until the house burns down. You shut off the thing, throw something on it, try to smother. If you got a fire extinguisher, you put a fire extinguisher on the grease fire, and the drama's over. For COVID-19, that fire extinguisher was hydroxychloroquine and a drug called ivermectin. The evidence for this is overwhelming now.
It's kind of, to interrupt you, I have my windows open because it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
As you're talking about the fire truck is now blaring by. They must have been listening. Sorry, go on though. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine.
It's serendipity.
It is. Somebody, they're a fan.
Thank you for breaking my concentration because they're difficult to do.
Oh, sorry about that. No, it's sometimes I just hear it just wailing by, and I'm like, the
No,
fact that we were just talking about fires, but ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. Yeah,
I've got to teach you because this is this is so sad.
Yeah,
and where I was at, we weren't ready for this, and in the first book we tried, that got published 2 months before all this happened, and it was fairly prophetic.
Yeah,
what was going to happen, and we were trying desperately to get some people to move on this stuff. And the pandemic preparedness that we did have, Obama got rid of it. He diffused it out. And then, okay, well, the guys recovered this and that. It's still a little bit functional. And then Mr. Bolton came in with his seersucker suit and mustache and got rid of the last remnants. You've worked as part of a team before. Whenever you have these really good teams, it's like pure magic. You can't wait to get into work. And these are hard things to find these days, where everybody is so focused on the same thing, and you're working on the same problems together. And when you've got a good team, it's just this tremendous feeling that you can do anything. Yeah. Give us the next problem. Yeah?
Yeah.
And Mr. Bolton broke all that up. We had a rear admiral that, for the first time ever, was the go-to guy for pandemics. And they fired him. And they fired his boss. It was nonsensical. And nobody, where you put the effort into in a pandemic are your local communities. If you get like a killer, there's one coming, make no mistake. This was mild. COVID-19 had a very mild death rate. And we screwed it up so badly on over three presidential administrations: Obama, President Trump, and Biden, that it's not the presidential administration. It's the ingrained federal scientists that have been screwing this up. And it's the same people. It's Dr. Fauci. And you bring new clueless people in, like Dr. Burks, that act like they're experts, but they didn't know what they were doing. They're bureaucrats. Their experiences was with a chronic pandemic, HIV/AIDS. Well, that takes months to years to kill you. COVID-19 infection, you've got 9 days and you're in real trouble if you've got comorbidities and all the risk factors. You'll be on a ventilator at 10 days and in septic shock very quickly. So the idea was to treat very early. And the FDA under Janet Woodcock, under her drug safety division, fought tooth and nail and lied to get hydroxychloroquine blocked. I mean, you can armchair quarterback. We were there. We watched this whole thing from front row seats, myself and the colleagues I was with, the team I was with. And I mean, we tried everything, literally everything. And then the FDA commissioner, Stephen Hahn, has the audacity to complain that we were putting pressure on him. Oh, by the way, he's taken up a nice cushy job at the venture capital firm that funded the Moderna vaccine.
That's a funny coincidence.
Isn't it odd?
Life's a hoot.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where Janet Woodcock goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't Gottlieb at Pfizer or Moderna or something?
Oh, yeah. It's all. I've sat across the table from Dr. Woodcock, and she didn't know Pete Navarro had his own personal medical advisor that was also a pandemic consultant and a virologist. And that explains the look on her face during the meeting. She looked a little worried. She should have been. I refused to believe it was intentional for months. And it just didn't make sense to me. I couldn't believe that the drug companies were that powerful. And then you start later on getting stories from the senior editor at the New England Journal of Medicine and the Lancet, Richard Horton, that no, they were being pressured to publish these papers that never would have made it through a normal peer review. And all it took was 4 papers for the biased mainstream media to just scare the death out of doctors and patients to take these drugs. They're so safe, we let pregnant women take hydroxychloroquine. Now, what drug do we let a pregnant woman take? Virtually none. Nursing mothers can take it. We allow very few drugs to be taken that way. It's had 55-year use. Never any adverse lethal cardiac events. Now suddenly they're manufactured. Well, no, it was because they were giving it to late patients that were already circling the drain. They were in the death spiral. And you give them hydroxychloroquine, they're going to die anyway.
And weren't they giving
any drug you give them, once you get into that super inflammatory region, it's not going to work.
Give them a glass of orange juice and it'll look like the orange juice killed them.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. And then there never was any early use study. This was all done by private doctors. Zev Zelenko up in New York was keeping records. P. McCullough, Harvey Risch was looking at all the data coming in and out. Thank God for these people. And that gave everybody courage enough, Pete Navarro, myself, to really fight this thing. And we went up against 2 giant agencies the CDC and the FDA. And we tried everything we said, we tried to make sure that it was referenced. And it just got ignored. And I'm on the phone with, we'd set up a little thing because we had no PPE, personal protective equipment. We were running out of surgical masks, much less the fancy N95 ones. And so Pete Navarro had organized with some of the Fortune 500 companies that use masks and goggles and this type of thing to donate their supplies to the hospitals. And of course, New York, Brother Bill de Blasio, Brother Bill, had done very little preparation. And they wanted the federal government to do everything for them. That wasn't in the pandemic plan. President Trump's good nature, he did everything he could. But that was never in the pandemic plan. And New York just sucked all the excess personal protective gear in from everywhere else, New York City. I'm talking millions of items. And our small little office were running this. So we needed intelligence. It's no good to know this hospital is run out 2 days ago. You know, you need to know how close. So I was phoning the emergency rooms, and I was phoning the ICU units. And you make friends with these nurses. You know them after a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a couple times a week, some of them that were having problems. And you hear the anguish and, you know, the tears sometimes. And here it was, they're on their last mask, and in through the door comes these big boxes full of masks and stuff, shipped directly from wonderful companies that participated in this. Really, it was fantastic to see the patriotism of most of these companies. Not all. But that really helped bridge the gap until, as a nation, we could get our act together. So it was very, very exciting, if not sad time to be, for 24/7, 365. Nobody got a break. So, and then to fail and have these vaccines introduced. September 2020, I'd had enough. So I was writing open letters to the American public, trying to tell them what was going on. And I couldn't find any platforms. The Washington Post and New York Times, all these places had already besmirched the early use drug treatment. Now they're not going to turn around and say, oh, we were wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, the data was overwhelming. And, you get a feeling for what these poor nurses are going through. And at least 1,000 of them died from incorrect.
The nurses?
Yeah. We're not sure. It's inexcusable that we don't know how many nurses died of COVID-19 during the 2.5 years of the pandemic. But, the only way this has ended has nothing to do with the vaccines. It's the fact the virus has picked up so many mutations now. It's like when your car starts to rust. And eventually the tires are going to fall off, right?
Yeah.
So the virus has lost a lot of its virulence.
Yeah.
And I think it's past the point where it can back mutate and pick that up.
Yeah.
Well, the strains we're seeing now, they might replicate a lot better in humans, but they've lost some of the sequences that made them killers when it first came out. So it's been quite a trip.
It's like I'm on the 5th floor. It's like dropping a ball, right? Every subsequent bounce is going to be smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
So it may reproduce It may jump up a notch, but then
Yeah,
its actual lethality goes down. So
yeah.
it's, you know,
It grades into the head cold from 80s.
yeah, they kind of just become symbiotic with our species.
Yeah, yeah.
To go back to what you said about the intentionality of it and how you couldn't believe that these companies were this powerful, I think we've all probably gone through something like that, maybe not on that scale, but where you initially have a hunch and that hunch is so paradigm shifting, your brain kind of blocks it out.
Yeah,
You think
you can't
that's
look.
not it.
When this came out, I refused to believe it had any laboratory origin. You know,
It's
SARS
too,
one
yeah.
in 2003. That came out of a wet market.
Hmm.
I've been to Asia many times. I've been in those wet markets, and they're supposed to be illegal now after SARS one in 2003, but they're still there. And when the cops start coming, they walk really slow, so the guys just grab,
Time for, yeah,
the chicken or head for the hills. But it's in an Asian culture; they like their meals fresh.
sure.
And grandma or grandpa or somebody or the maid, somebody goes down to the wet market every morning and picks out the foods they're going to eat that day. And they whack it there and they bring it home and prepare it. And there's no leftovers.
It's got to be good.
Oh, it's great food. It's so healthy,
Yeah.
unless it's carrying deadly
Well,
viruses.
that little asterisk.
So this thing, the SARS one, broke out in a wet market, and they had Chinese horseshoe bats. I've eaten a lot of weird things, but I've not eaten a horseshoe bat. Okay,
Yeah.
and or the fruit bats. They're pretty cute. They're big round eyes and yeah. So there were some civet cats, which are a mongoose type animal, and they're kind of cute. And everybody's crammed together, and of course the viruses are trafficking between the different animals. And the civet cats were an amplifying host, and the virus figured out how to live in a different species of mammal. Because animals have different body temperatures and this type of thing. So once it jumps species from one mammal into another, it's ready to jump into humans. And normally the first species jumps into humans, the virus still hasn't quite fully adapted. So you get a horrendous disease in the unfortunate recipient, but it's not effectively transmitted person to person. But after a certain number of infections, the virus learns and it becomes well adapted to transmit to person. We didn't see this in COVID 19. That virus appeared already perfectly adapted to humans. In fact, it was so adapted, it was difficult to go back and infect bats with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
that's a,
that's a
that's
fingerprint.
a ding dong moment.
That's like when you find an astroturfed movement where some politician comes out of nowhere and it's like, this guy is for the American people. You're like, what? Can I find anything on him from more than 3 months ago? No, he came out of a black hole. And it's like, that's an asset.
Exactly.
That's an intelligence asset.
Exactly.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So same thing with this.
So we've got some really smart people in this country. There's a Dr. Bloom that I think he's got a small team, but it's very small. And he's single handedly overturned every argument that the Chinese have come up with concerning the origins of the virus. They deleted a bunch of their computer files that had sequences, COVID 19 sequences, going back November, before November. And he recovered some of these from the cloud. And these viruses aren't the ones that are in the wet market.
Mm.
Somebody from the wet market came in and infected the people in the wet market. This thing was circulating well before. So where else are you going to have a species jump? Well, you're not. So if you tally up the evidence for a laboratory origin of COVID-19, you got about 15 items here. There's a good book out. You can get it free online. And the CCP is at war with America. You type that in. It's Fred Gaffney's group that did it. Frank Gaffney. He's a good patriot. And you can go there. You can download it off the internet and read it. And it's got all the evidence. Circumstantial, yes. But that's all you're going to get at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very powerful circumstantial evidence. And there's about 15 items in there that support a lab origin. On this side, the data that's supporting a natural origin, the square root of nothing, 0. So, and then you find out, oh, the NIH was funding some of this stuff. Oh, the State Department didn't do due diligence. There's a couple divisions on foreign technology transfer. And these guys that run this weren't doing their job, and they allowed some pretty technology that should have been close hold to go to China. Some techniques and procedures. So they really didn't want to have a laboratory origin. And then they start intentionally putting pressure. These are rungs down away from the president. Dr. Renfield's a pretty straight shooter. And I would be sorely surprised if he knew that his CDC lower down was intentionally working with Facebook and Twitter to deplatform scientists that were desperately trying to speak out. We're on the wrong path with these vaccines. We've got to go back to the hydroxychloroquine. It's safe. Look at all this data. And nobody would go back and admit, yeah, we were wrong. It just got worse and worse. And then the coercion, let's make your life as difficult as possible until you're vaccinated. Oh, and then let's mandate it. Oh, and then let's order it in the military. Now, we don't really know how many. Look, the myocarditis, this inflammation of the heart that has reached the news, the mainstream news. There's no such thing as a mild myocarditis.
No.
You're scarring your heart.
It's like a mild aneurysm.
Yeah, it's like being half dead.
Yeah.
You're interfering with the electrical conduction of your heart. And we don't know the long-term problems with this. But when you're having this type of damage at a young age, in early teens, you're using up all your reserve you're going to need later for a normal lifespan. And that's just the start of it. We're now seeing there's been enough adults autopsied now with definitive vaccine-associated death. And the brain picture is not pretty.
The brain?
Yeah. You're getting abnormal amyloid. Amyloid is a general
Amyloid plaque.
term. Yeah, you can call it prions or prions. I call them prions. And like mad cow disease, or Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, or there's about 5 of these that involve one protein. Another disease is the Parkinson's spectrum of diseases. And again, it's a different protein. It's an amyloid protein. It's a different protein that's involved. but it's the same thing. Beta amyloid is the abnormal protein deposited in the brain in Alzheimer's. So all these affect higher brain functions. And it's a common finding in autopsies. And we can stain it and see, oh, this is the spike protein from the COVID virus. It's not beta amyloid or any of these other amyloid proteins. It's from the spike protein itself because it has sequences in there that make it irreversibly fold. So this is a whole can of worms that's been open. And we've just affected a generation of kids. We don't know if it's eventually going to be cleared by the body or if it's going to cause more abnormal formation. We don't know. These vaccines never should have been given to humans. So this is what we've had to go through over the last couple of years. And it's literally, there's a handful of people fighting this. Everyone's had their careers affected. Pete McCulloch lost his medical license. And some other doctors too. We've got Dr. Littell, where I'm at the moment. They took his license away. The board did. The specialty board. He got it back. Some good guys got together and wrote a letter and cited all the references and this and that and this and that. And Dr. Littell is right. They gave him his license back. But it still damages things. This can never happen again. And there's some things we can do to prevent this. One of these, bringing back the Office of Technology Assessment in Congress. The Newt Gingrich got rid of this because they were waffling on and trying to block some of the things he wanted to do because it didn't make proper sense. Superconducting, the super colliders, things. You can go to the archives and see all of the projects. But the OTP, it was a dedicated grid. It's about 100 people. And different specialties from engineering to medicine, vaccine. And when a problem came up in technology, anyone on the Hill, elected official, could ask for an OTA assessment. And some of these assessments took several years to do. And they would give briefings and keep everybody updated, but it was an educational method for members of Congress that, anything to do with hard science or technology, a lot of elected officials are over their head. And they would bring in both sides of the story and argue it out and write a report, pros, cons, this is why, and present it in an understandable fashion to the committee or individual, either of the committee that ordered this investigation. So they had accurate data. And they could block the drug companies. No, we're not going along with this hydrochloroquine. Here's all the papers that say hydroxychloroquine is highly effective, drops mortality in some studies 71%. Nothing works that well in medicine, but it's repeatable. Here's what happened when Dharavi, the big slum in India, in Mumbai, that was zombie apocalypse waiting to happen. And they nipped that thing in the bud in a couple weeks. But they had a team of 2,500 doctors that just went out into the slums starting at 8 a.m., wearing all their gear, equatorial temperatures, knocking on everybody's door, checking for symptoms. They had a pulse oximeter on the end of a stick, and they put their finger on it. And they didn't need testing. There was no time for testing. But a good physician, if you have a case, what we call a case definition, you can diagnose COVID-19. And if you're wrong, the hydroxychloroquine they gave to the person and the whole family, it's safe. So if you do made a mistake, they just got 11 tablets for free.
Yeah.
But they take over 5 days and it's over.
Yeah.
So they brought it under control. And out of all those doctors, I think 30, they were on prophylactic. They were taking it in case they were exposed. And I think 30 of them got like really mild cases. Nobody went to hospital. And they had a long-standing sort of immunity for years. Antibodies have nothing to do with that, by the way. It's there's two components to your immune system. One is the wrecking crew. They come in with specialized cells called macrophages. Come in, and once they're primed to look for a part of the virus, if it sees any cell with that protein on its surface, it just comes over and sledgehammers that cell to death. I mean, it wipes it out, right?
Scorched earth.
Sort of like about a week later, the snipers come in. Yeah. So it's like Delta Force, they just shoot everybody in the room, sort it out later. And then you've got the snipers up here on the rooftops and towers.
They're just scanning.
They see a virus and they take it out specifically.
Gotcha.
They clear it out, the loose viral particles. The macrophages don't care. They'll damage normal tissue during this process as well.
Yeah. Carpet bombing.
It's not just antibodies. Everybody's been focused on antibodies. No. Your real long-term memory, because when these guys are done shooting everybody in the room, they go back to the lymph nodes and kind of wait. And they tell the helper T cells, look, if you see this again, this is what it is, and call us. We'll be back. And that's how your immune system works, really simply. Just focusing on the antibody section is a fool's errand. Now, we can give you antibodies, which near the end of 2020, they were doing. These infusion clinics, you go in and you get a big shot.
The Eli Lilly?
The
monoclonals?
The triple, yeah. And they'll take everything out. But you've still got your it's not your primary antiviral defense is the cell-mediated immunity, the NK cells and the Delta Force macrophages. That's what they keep you alive long enough for the antibodies to be made, right? Okay. So when you catch a viral infection, there's a race going on between how much damage the virus can do to you before the production factories get killed by the Delta Force macrophages. And then now we've got the more refined snipers taking out the free viral particles. That's how it works in a real nutshell. And then everybody goes home and remembers. Yeah. Yeah. These are all these viruses are always mutating, trying to change into a form that they can escape immunity. Now, normally in a pandemic, we don't lock everybody down at home for weeks and weeks and weeks. You get what's called subclinical infection. See, for every virus out there, and we know this from the old biowarfare days in the 60s and 50s, in fact, post-World War II till the end of the 70s. Well, earlier than that. I think it's 71 when we shut it down. Yeah. It was under Nixon. We got rid of everything. We don't do that anymore. But they learned that for every different virus that infects man, You have to have a minimal infectious dose, or otherwise the delta force macrophages are able to sort it out, and the natural killer cells, they're able to sort it out. You have to have a certain minimal dose of infectious virus for the infection to get established.
Okay.
So how you pick this up, this type of immunity, is that you go out, you mingle, and you're going to work, and you're doing this type of thing. And yeah, there's infected people around, and everybody beats them up till they go home. And you've had a minor exposure, but not enough to establish an infection. And your body responds to that. Wasn't enough to cause an event, but it got everything sort of primed and nervous. And then, you stop by for a dinner. Yeah, after work, have a glass of wine or something, and you get another little exposure, and everything goes haywire, but you don't feel sick. And you do this, and you're catching up with these variants that are trying to become
Gotcha.
the dominant strain, the predominant clade. So it's not a big shock when you come out of isolation and lockdowns after 6 months, and you're faced with one of these strains that have evolved. Wow, Delta strain, and now people are dying again and back in hospital. You see how it works? So
Yeah.
lockdowns are the last thing you really want to do. And when we had hydroxychloroquine, the idea was to let life try to go along as normal. Obviously, you're going to ban big meetings and crowded meetings and union meetings, and you're just asking for trouble like that. Indoors, in air-conditioned buildings. The virus loves stuff like that. It doesn't like humidity. And okay, we'll get you hydroxychloroquine. You won't go to hospital. You're going to be sick as a dog for 3 or 4 days, and then you'll be better. That was the plan. And it just got changed into, okay, you come in for testing. Okay, you've got COVID-19. Go home and wait until you turn blue, and then come back in, and we'll give you hydroxychloroquine, but it won't work because now you're too far advanced. You're 3 days away from a ventilator. You see what I mean? And you still saw some partial effects in these early hospitalized patients, but you had to treat as soon as the patient hit the emergency room. And Dr. O'Neill and the Ford Group in Detroit, system of hospitals, they were doing this, and they were ending up with like 51% reduction in mortality. Mount Sinai was getting 49% reduction in mortality. Spanish, big study, 61% reduction in mortality. And then the private practice doctors started adding zinc, which inhibits viral replication, and a compound that helps the zinc be absorbed, and vitamin D. We don't play outside anymore. You work indoors all the time. You don't go out. You're short of vitamin D, and it's very important for your immune system. So supplementing this. And this cocktail of stuff was starting to reach 80% reduction in mortality. But you got to take it within the first sort of 7 days, 8 days at the latest. And it would have worked. And they destroyed it. For experimental vaccines, that common sense would tell you it's not going to work. And now they're trying to get out of it. Fauci. Well, Dr. Birx, well, I never thought the vaccines would work. What? And Fauci, well, I never ordered any lockdowns. You got him on the news. I got a video of him saying, oh, yes, well, when we saw it was spreading through the communities, I informed the president that we need to lock down. And now he's got nothing to do with it. Harping on the vaccine. Now, Jeff Tannenberger is like a brilliant scientist. Okay, and he used to be at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology. And he and his team went through tissue slides from World War I of soldiers that died from the 1918 pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, was the third lethalist. Is that a word?
I
Third
don't.
most lethal
Yeah, lethal. I don't
pandemic.
know. We just coined it.
Yeah, I just did a Biden then.
Yeah, it's
Well, actually, it was a George Bush. He
yeah.
used
That's more.
tough words.
Don't
Yeah,
don't misunderestimate. Was it? Don't misunderestimate me. Yeah, whatever it was.
I don't know, but it was the third most lethal pandemic in human history. Was 1918 influenza H1N1 strain, and the H1N1s we get now. That's what's left over after it's so heavily mutated over the last 100 years that there's not a lot of back mutations that it's doing to more lethal. So he was one of the guys that reconstructed this in the lab, pulling out genetic material from these tissue slides, 100 years old, and sequencing it and slowly splicing it together and, getting the genes. And they recreated it in the lab. That's a brilliant scientist and a brilliant scientific team.
Mm-hmm.
So they wrote a paper. Okay, the vaccines didn't work. What did we learn? And of course, I guess they're at National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases now. Fauci's their boss. Fauci stuck his name on the paper just recently. So, oh yeah, no, I wasn't for the. So this is the type of nonsense that all Americans have had to put up with over 2 presidential administrations. It's not Biden's fault, wasn't Trump's fault, President Trump's fault.
Sure.
It was the same people entrenched in federal health agencies. And the one name that springs up time and time again, going back to Obama, is Dr. Anthony Fauci. He almost killed 2 nurses during the Ebola thing. He's on TV saying, oh, yes, and a single pair of gloves is enough, to nurse an Ebola patient. We don't even do that with hepatitis patients. For HIV patients, it's always double glove. That's basic fluid precautions. And he's saying a single pair. Well, those nurses, 2 of them got infected from, I think it was Thomas Duncan, the patient. And if they almost died. Okay. There were some treatments out by that time, but they stood a good chance. It wouldn't have been an Ebola virus. It only takes a handful of viral particles from 1 to 10 to infect you. Yeah. Its relative became one of the Soviet Union's premier biological weapons, Marburg disease. Yeah. They made metric tons of this stuff and loaded it into ICBMs and refrigerated nose cones and the whole thing. Star Wars scared them. That was the thing.
Yeah. I always bring that up. I always bring up Ken Albeck's Biohazard when I tell people about it. I'm like, they were putting Ebola in the nose cones by CBMs, and people just go, "Yeah." I'm like, I don't think you've really walked that out in your mind what it is.
Little cluster bomb units, spread it all over.
Doomsday.
So I mean, this is like the Omega Man stuff.
This is sci-fi villains.
Yeah, but
it's real.
Smallpox. They wanted smallpox to be gone. They contributed a lot of the vaccine for the smallpox eradication program, while they grew up some of the more lethal smallpox strains and loaded it onto missiles.
Yeah, they wanted everyone to be vaccinated against it so that no one would need the vaccine, so that everyone would be hyper susceptible to a breakout.
Well, so eventually they'd stop vaccinating.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Because the vaccines carried a mortality, make no mistake.
Sure.
And you couldn't give it to the immunocompromised. So I don't know quite what our HIV population is at the moment, but you couldn't give them a smallpox vaccine. It depended on how many CD4 and CD8 cells they had and blah, blah, blah. But there was a general consensus that, you could kill them if you gave them the smallpox vaccine. So, yeah, every good thing always has an evil side to it.
Have you read I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Dr. Peter Breggin and Ginger Breggin's COVID-19 Global Predators, We Are the Prey.
Yeah, I don't get involved in that stuff.
Oh no, it's just I read that around January or February.
Yeah, I didn't.
Gotcha.
I stay away from that.
Gotcha. So what we were talking about before the podcast, obviously your book, 3 Seconds Till Midnight, which is eerily prophetic. I do love the trains. I also just like trains, so that might just be because I'm
Oh yeah. Well, the train survived into the next. That was designed. Sorry, I'm interrupting your question.
No. I've done 1,210 episodes. There is part of me like I just go into autopilot, or I just start going. Blah, 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 blah,
We get some good discussions.
Oh, thank you.
Those trains were designed for what I call the low resource, high density, poor communities, our inner cities.
Yeah.
Now our inner cities evolved through the rail system.
Oh yeah. That's why I love it in your book, is it's so brilliant. It's just that's what everything's grown out of over the last 200 years.
Yeah. Highland Park is, what do you want to call it? The old word is ghetto.
Yeah, slum. Yeah.
Slum. Very high density. There's a lot of comorbidities because the people smoke and have other unhealthy habits. Diet, overweight, greasy foods, all the things we know
across the board, just not ideal. I know it's all the fun shit.
Your arteries up.
There's nothing better than being shit faced with a cigarette and a Big Mac. I'm with you, but
or some Kentucky Fried.
Oh God,
the sandwich.
Oh no, you go or not even
crispy sandwich. Oh, Popeyes. Oh my God,
Popeyes crispy chicken sandwich.
There's fist fights over that. Yeah,
I'm okay with dying 10 years earlier if I can have one of those every month. That'll get you. Chick-fil-A sauce.
Talk to me, Goose.
Yeah, it'll kill you. Dude, I worked at my best friend's dad had a door frame warehouse in the outskirts of Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the ghetto, and I worked there summer 2008. I was 18. There's this guy there, Lester.
Yeah.
We'd be in this warehouse covered in like sawdust and shit, but he would get these grease like once a week. He'd go in there and he'd cook this stuff. Oh my God. Sex is great, but this guy's fried chicken.
Yeah.
Melt your face off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how we remember these guys?
Yeah.
We had a guy named Jesse Irvin, and my dad knew him. I'd get assigned to work every summer. We had to have a summer job. That was mandatory.
Oh, yeah. No.
You're not getting out of it.
No.
But these are adult jobs with adult pay. And I was on the street crew in my little hometown, about 18,000 people. And by God, you did a man's day's work, you got a man's day's pay.
Yeah.
And the street superintendent was our next door neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you worked your ass off or dad got told. Yeah.
Well, this was my best friend's dad, so there's no getting away from it.
There's no, no.
I'm going to hang out with Joe that weekend. I can't look at Mr. Ed, and be like, "Hey, Ed," and be like, "Well, fuck, were you Monday?" Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That summer, but no, that's true because this was what, so summer 2008, and I worked there summer 2006 too. So
yeah.
2006, you're 16. Minimum wage was like what, $6? No, we made 10, 12 an hour. You're 16 years old and you're clearing $450 a week. You feel rich.
You are for that age group.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're rolling.
Job.
Yeah, you're rolling.
You can take your shirt off. You're out there, and
Yeah. Oh, it was
Hi,
great.
Cindy.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. Learn how to catcall Mexican women with the black guys. Hey Tommy, say something. I'm like, what do I say? They say see Poppy. Like, all right, and they'd scream at you. But that
Yeah, but
no, yeah,
you learned how to work,
that too.
and you learned very early on and how to do a good job, how to
Yeah,
do a thorough job.
and also if you didn't do a good job,
Your
you screwed your
father taught you,
yeah,
and I never wanted to work for him
yeah,
because I mean he would come by. You had chores like you had to pull do,
yeah.
and he'd come by and check it out, and you better be right, and you
Well,
get in the habit of doing it.
well, when
If
people
you're
ask
good,
me
you'll
how
work.
when people ask me how I've done 1,200 episodes in a little over 3 years, I don't have like another operating system.
Yeah,
There's no, it's not like I'm choosing to do this instead of doing. I mean, I grew up in a Roman Catholic conservative household,
yeah.
and parents still married, still wonderful people. But when people are like, "How come you do?" This is my third episode today, and it's just like there is no conscious thought. Like, why do I do so many? Why do I
Yeah.
read so many books? I don't know anything else. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is what you do. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna dial it up to 12 and go total war. I'm gonna go macrophage Delta Force.
Look at the good work you've done because
Sure.
the mainstream media have hobbled this.
Yeah.
The CDC actually using the Census Bureau data mining. The DoD have been using. I'm not going to get into that, but seriously, you Pete McCulloch. I think he's the most published
Cardio,
cardiologist in the United States.
no, world history, most published cardiorenal physician.
You couldn't get the message out, and you have to sit and watch this stupidity. The most powerful man in the United States was 200 feet away from me, and I couldn't get to him.
Hmm.
I got to Meadows. Well, one of our mutual friends, Mr. Meadows, and myself got to him, and they told him who I was and where I was at. I never phoned. I wrote him a letter from my university email stating, and this is in September 2020. I said, look, don't get your hopes up about these vaccines. They tried with SARS-1 in 2003. They couldn't do it. They successfully vaccinated the animals. They immunized them. When they gave them live virus, they all died, and horribly. So you you allowed hydroxychloroquine to go away. There is no plan B if these vaccines don't work. You've got nothing. And this virus will run its course. And it did. Now I lost my train of thought.
No, we were going all over the place. I mean, back to the chicken as we were talking about Highland Park. We're talking about inner cities,
Okay, the
comorbidities,
train.
the
The
trains.
train.
Yeah.
So the idea, and this all started out as a defense for biological warfare. You know, People don't realize this stuff is a city killer if it's done correctly. And that's aerosol dissemination
Mm-hmm.
in the right
Project C,
particle size range. And
Project C spray.
yeah, there's a lot of science to it. This isn't something you're going to cook up in your basement. There's formulas and
Mm-hmm.
stabilizers you have to have, because being a germ out, a virus or a bacteria out in the air floating
Yeah.
around is an unnatural
Yeah. You want to buy it.
state of affair. Yeah, the sunlight's killing you, the moisture's killing you in the atmosphere, the oxygen's killing you and rusting you, oxidation. So you have to add chemical compounds, and the recipe is different for each pathogen. But if it's done correctly, uh, it'll take out a city. So we were worried about this, very, very worried. And Iran has had a program now for 20 years, and they've declared themselves sufficient in 1999, that, oh yeah, we got a program. And the Chinese have one, and North Korea. So we were worried about this. Again, we were worried about it during Korea. In fact, that's how the CDC got started. There was a team that if there was an unusual outbreak, they would all go and investigate it and see, were these the high dose first exposure cases that we're seeing, this cluster. And that later became the Epidemic Intelligence Service, which is still alive today. Although now it looks for food outbreaks and, the new fungus that's floating around. And
They had a special
that's how it
plane.
started.
I think you wrote about it in your book, 3 Seconds Till Midnight. They had a
Yeah,
special plane, right?
well, no, we need to have a special plane
Gotcha.
because the idea is to stop this stuff overseas.
Yeah.
And right now, let's say, should something break out in the Ukraine, how are you going to get a team in there? So one of the teams should be special operators that can go into a conflict area that are highly medically trained. They're 18 Delta people, or that's the Green Beret medic level, and give them about a couple months training in epidemiology, so they can go in, take samples, figure out what the story is, bring the samples back, and we can start working on stuff. But why not just have a lab there with all the pencil necks inside the lab and identify it right there? We've got these, it takes an electron microscope to etch these things, these viro chips, and it'll look at 15,000 different genetic sequences and tell you within 24 hours what virus you've got. And if you're not sure and you get a partial hybridization, it'll tell you what family this unknown is from.
Give you the neighborhood.
Yeah. And I mean, I can take my 104-year-old Aunt Juanita and in a half hour teach her how to run the machine.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we're not exploiting this technology enough. 24 hours is a long time when you have an epidemic. And it may be 24 hours just in time or 24 hours past just in time to try to contain this thing, especially with air travel. Once you hit the international air routes, this thing's over here in 24 hours. So we have to really approach things very, very seriously. And SARS-1 was picked up by data mining, but they never sent an exploitation team over. You got to have boots on the ground visibly. And the Chinese lied about it. They didn't tell anyone until it broke out in Hong Kong and they couldn't cover it up anymore. And it was the same with COVID-19. They covered it up for quite a while until you couldn't cover it up anymore. And it'll be that way again. Mexico covered up in 2009. There was an H1N1 outbreak. And again, a private data mining firm called Veritech discovered through open source that these Mexican women were all protesting because their kids had gotten sick and died. And then they had another signal at a place a little bit farther away. You could see this thing kind of, and it was in the area was a 1 million pig farm. And the influenza virus had several crossovers, and it did its final crossover at the pig farm and got the little village. Veritech found this out, case 0, but before the CDC was ever aware that there was anything going on in Mexico. But the first cases that appeared in the United States, they caught. They're very good for influenza, at monitoring inside the United States and its territories. But we need a global thing. Global data mining and global verification teams on standby. And they'll work every year. They'll get 2 or 3 deployments.
Oh, yeah.
So this is part of the thing of some of the things that have to be done. Anyway, the train was part of that.
I love the train.
So when you have an outbreak in such a poor health area with no resources, usually very poor cities, yeah,
Yeah.
St. Louis, Gary, Indiana, um, the slum areas of the 120 largest cities, you have to do it for them. And all the computer models that have been done show that if you can treat and control it, or if you have a pre-existing vaccine, that's a different story. And you can get it in there like really quickly. Not a messenger RNA, but the old style.
Yeah.
You know, the influenza vaccine. We've got stockpiles for bird flu and this and that. And you get it in there quickly, working with the community leaders. This isn't Gestapo stuff. And the train brings in essentially a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets up right downtown.
Yeah, park. Yeah, right on the tracks.
Yeah, and these expeditionary force provider kits, I mean, they're functional in a day. You've got the tents up in 4 hours.
Jeez.
With a trained crew. They come with a manual, a field manual. So you use the National Guard for that. And of course, they practice putting it up, taking it down, putting it up, taking it down, putting it up when it's raining, putting it up when it's snowing, until it's second nature.
Yeah.
And boom, suddenly you got a 150 bed health facility right in the middle of
literally downtown.
Yeah, literally downtown. So this type of thing, and the helicopters will bring everything in. And there's technology. I mean, we can make an intensive care bed. This stuff is all handheld now, most of it. Complete automated blood chemistry, an iStat thing in your hand. A Piccolo machine that's about that big. It looks like a Keurig coffee pot. It'll do all the standard chemistry tests that a hospital can do. I mean, the technology is amazing. So you can set up an intensive care ward in a high school auditorium. You want a place that makes meals. Yeah. There's a cafeteria in high schools. They serve school lunches. So this was all in the plan, these alternate care sites. And you try to keep the infected out of the hospital so you can handle the normal hospital things, the heart attacks and the broken bones and all this stuff, COPD resurgence. So this was how it would all work. And it comes as a complete package. All you got to do is put people on it and attach it to a locomotive.
Yeah.
And you could tailor make it for earthquakes. You put tents and, Red Cross people on. So that was the idea, that you don't just waste money. You've actually got something you can look at.
Bang for your buck on existing infrastructure.
Yeah, and it could, with real ruthless contract control, it could be done surprisingly inexpensive. You don't have to buy the locomotive.
No.
You requisition it.
Yeah. You don't need.
You clear all the traffic off the track.
Yeah.
And you can have that thing anywhere in any state, even California.
Yeah.
Within a day.
Even California, that commie shithole.
That's a long state. People don't realize.
Well, no, it's enormous. I mean, it's got several gigantic cities in it.
So why don't we base it where the biggest slum areas are?
Yeah. And
when you're not using it, get the crew in that's assigned to it, the doctors and the nurses and everything else, and go up to Appalachia and run a free clinic.
Yeah.
Good practice for everybody. Yeah, no charge.
Get those med school students in there.
Well, residents.
They're cannon fodder.
Residents. But no, run that.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's a win-win. The docs get better. The health, I mean, there's a lot of chronic disease out there that people just don't.
You establish public trust.
Do you remember the guy that used to be on Wild Kingdom? No, you're too young. Mutual of Omaha. Wow. My name is Marlon Perkins, Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. He was an old gray-haired gentleman. He ran the St. Louis Zoo. And he had this adventure guy. with the khaki shirts and the muscle, named Jim Fowler. I think I got the right guy. And they would film everything. You'd go down the Amazon and Jim would jump in the water and wrestle these huge anacondas, and he's up and down below the surface and down again. And while Jim captures this snake, let's take a break for mutual moment. Yeah. And where was I going with that? I've done it again.
A public trust trains Appalachia med students.
Yeah.
Residency.
So Jim Fowler ended up, he was starting, he'd visit a lot of these areas, and he was going to do like cleft palates. We'll just take a team down there and the surgeons will do the cleft palates and fix all the kids. Or we'll go here and do that. And he tried testing it out, I think, in Appalachia, and found out there was so much need in the areas here in the United States. He became devoted to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everybody benefits. The doctors get better. The local communities get better. So back to the whole story. If every local community can handle what's called their medical surge requirements, that is, bring doctors out of retirement, bring nurses out of retirement, make sure they're trained to operate in a highly contaminated environment. That takes like an afternoon, and that they decontaminate and all this stuff. But high schools closed. It's now an alternate care site only for infectious patients. Elementary schools, that's your neighborhood emergency health center, 1-800 numbers. I never saw a 1-800 number. I'm in the White House and I'm phoning Washington, D.C. Public Health. I think I have COVID. Where do I go for testing? We don't know. I said, well, you're public health. How do you know? Well, we don't know. So I phoned back a couple of days later. I'm sure I've got COVID. Where do I go? Well, we don't know. Well, should I go to the emergency room? Do you have an email? Oh, we'll have somebody send you an email, and nobody ever emailed me. It was complete uselessness. We've spent arguably $100 billion on biological warfare defense since 2020. And that's the best the capital city of the United States can do.
Well, I'm sure the government. I'm sure the government bunkers are up to snuff. Not for you and me, not for us taxpayers, but I'm sure NORAD is. I'm sure they've got it down pat.
Sidear.
Yeah, site at Raven Rock, Mount Weather. What's the hotel? Greenbrier.
No, that's shut down. That's a tourist thing now.
Yeah, no, some journalists blew the lid on that in like the 70s.
Yeah.
That place was stockpiled with birth control and condoms because all the senators were bringing their secretaries. Can't have babies in the apocalypse.
You work at the White House. There's a overwhelming seriousness that should envelop every person there. And most of it does. The younger research assistants and things, I've never seen a finer bunch of people in my life.
Sure.
My God, they're sharp. You have to run to keep up with them. And nothing phases them. I mean, okay. So Joanna gets the thing. We're worried about our drugs because they're all made in. We don't even make penicillin in the United States anymore. So Peter Navarro saw the need. We need to bring critical drug production back to U.S. soil. And this was pretty far along. I mean, they'd identified places in Puerto Rico where this stuff would go. And Joanna Pete Navarro always likes what he calls granularity, like exquisite detail.
Yeah.
So we had a list of drugs. It wasn't a small list. Okay, Joanna, I need to know all the details. So not just the active pharmaceutical ingredients, but where did those APIs come from? Right down to the chemicals you set on a table.
Yeah.
And where did those chemicals come from? The starter things. And it took her a couple of months, but she did it. I mean, that would have been a doctoral project for a PhD, you
Oh,
know?
sure. Yeah. Yeah. The entire
And
line of ingredients down to
yeah,
like
and she's
the
not,
metal ore.
she wasn't a chemist. And by golly, she did it down to the dirt to make the clay, to make the bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of the shame is for all of the mishaps or incompetence and or maliciousness that's in the government. It completely it completely blinds out all of the good people in it because
Yeah,
there are genuine, not that there are, the overwhelming majority are genuinely good people who
they're dedicated.
genuinely they want their country to be better.
But you know, it only takes one fart at the dinner table. You know, think about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Dr. Hatfill, I gotta take a phone call in exactly 4 minutes. So in the remaining 3 minutes we have, could you real quick kind of maybe give a teaser about your new book, which you said you don't even have a name for? Um, any loose ideas or something you could do
Well,
to whet the appetite?
what we do, I was there from 3rd of February until, you know, the end of the handover in
Hmm.
January 2021. We were the last people, I think, to leave the building, our office. They threw us out.
Yeah.
And we described what we saw in the daily fight as we watched senior federal employees violate their oath and destroy a functional pandemic plan. And we take you right through all the things from the uh, cheap laminar flow assays that didn't work to the PCR that never was accurate. You were getting too many false positives. You know, I've used PCR years ago. And you got computer programs now that help you pick out the primers and everything. A good graduate student can make a good PCR test, but somehow the CDC wanted to do it and they screwed it up twice. And still screwed it up till the very end, and they finally got rid of it and said, no, it's kind of inaccurate. So we have no idea really what the true number of false positives are. And then it was amplifying I mean, the virus is long dead. You got antibodies, but you're still showing PCR products. You see what I mean?
Hmm.
It's not possible. So we go into that, and then chiefly refuting this Clyburn Volume 2 report. Everybody got subpoenaed to go testify there. And I got asked to testify. And I said no. So they subpoenaed all my emails at university and stuff. There's nothing there except what went on. And I have a website, Dr. Stephen Hatfill, Hatfill, Stephen with a V.com, where I have written a number of articles that helped to put my ideas together for this book. Why it was immoral to do childhood vaccinations. They're not susceptible to the COVID-19 virus. They don't have enough ACE2 receptors in their upper airway to get a good infection going. The children that have died have all had sadly very, very serious things wrong with them before COVID. Healthy kids, yeah, maybe they're crabby for a day, or a little fever for a day or so, but they're kind of immune.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through all that, and then the hydroxychloroquine story, blow by blow. And then the last time we addressed this Clyburn report is nothing, but it should be a violation of the Hatch Act. Seriously, it was political propaganda before the midterms. And the staffers that prepared it really should hang their heads in shame that they would put out such a product when they knew what the truth was. Then the last half of the book is what we can do right this very minute to start getting ready for the next one without vaccine campaigns that aren't going to work. Again, if you have pre-existing vaccine ready to go and you can get it out there quickly, by all means, and it's effective, by all means, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. We don't know what's going to hit us next until it hits us. And it may be so far removed from the original bird flu vaccine that we have that it's not fully effective. So you need early drug treatment. This is how you do it. We have 20,000 pharmaceutical compounds that are available for commercial marketing. And as we've seen with hydroxychloroquine, recently spironolactone, it's a diuretic. It inhibits replication of the cytomegalovirus. Who would have thought? So we need to go through all these 20,000 compounds and see for every viral family that has human pathogens out there, which ones might be effective. And of course, out of that, there's 4 viral families that are really always causing us trouble. So let's start with those first. Yeah. But let's get something out. We need expanded antiviral drugs and not $500 a dose Paxlovid. One of the tablets in Paxlovid carries a black box warning. How's that any different than hydroxychloroquine?
Yeah.
Oh, this time it's okay because it's $500 a treatment course. We try to impart the insanity that we saw for the last 2.5 years, and then offer some suggestions, including a revamped section on the train.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm focused on. Forget the pandemic. I just want to see the trains. This has all been a cover to talk to you about trains.
Trains rule.
Trains are the greatest.
And they're a perfect way to cost effectively and quickly. It's all about speed. Because there's only a narrow window to contain these things once they start.
Yeah.
You've got to have resources, boots on the ground right now. And what a perfect way to arrive with everything self-contained and everybody rehearsed, and suddenly the next morning when it's light, it's working.
Yeah.
So.
Could be done if we wanted to.
Yeah. Just where there's a will, there's usually a relative.
Yeah. 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 And,
but you get things done.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Hatfill, we got to wrap this one up. In the link is in the description is the link to your book. I think your website's in there. If not, I'll update that. Okay. Well, you already have the link to this show, so but I'll text you. I'd love to get you on here again. And hopefully as you draw closer to finishing your book, we'll obviously do an episode about that.
It's finished, but as you know, it's finished. It's just now you got to go through it and correct and take out all the words like dumbass and things like this and
fucking communist.
Make it a mature product.
A professional.
It's got a lot of pictures. There's like 40 pictures in it.
You got to put some makeup on it.
Well, it helps explain things.
Yeah.
Real simple diagrams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Got to remove dumbass and shithead and moron. fuck face. All those little unscientific terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be a mature product.
Yeah.
And I never quite fully grew up, I
No, me
think.
either. I mean, clearly I haven't. I'm having you on and I'm still swear like a sailor, right? I'm talking to you about pandemic preparedness and I'm talking about fried chicken and getting shit faced. Clearly there's a level of me that
It was a
refuses.
good track to go on, though.
It was. I don't regret it. I regret nothing.
I was in parochial school for 2 years till I just had it with the nuns.
Yeah. No, they'll get you. I still remember, I think she's been dead for a while. Sister Lorraine, my fourth grade teacher.
We
That
had
woman.
Sister Mary Rosarita.
Yeah. Oh no, they're little demons.
But Sister Flavia was God's child. I mean, she was. But she had no sense of tolerance, boy.
No.
Poor old Jeff Lane got a whipping, right? I mean, it was a full on hold you up by your arm.
Oh no,
In
they'd straight
first
up
grade.
they'd hit you. They'd straight up hit you with a ruler. This isn't like the 60s. This is
No,
like
they have a lot. No, yeah, you're terrified of them.
no, I'm talking like early 2000s. People are
Oh,
like, when did this happen? And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is we had iPods. This isn't like 50 years. No, they just straight up whack.
I want to go to boarding school.
Yeah. No, the nuns made you wish for the priest. You'd see the priest, you'd be like, oh, the priest is tough.
We had a good one. Father Daly still had the Irish brogue.
No, it's good cop, bad cop.
He took no nonsense from those nuns, boy.
It's good cop, bad cop. The
Yeah.
nuns drive you to the priest, and then the priest's lesser punishment seems merciful. And you don't realize that you've been gamed until it's over. I respect it, though. Father Lopez, I respect it. Yeah.
I respected them. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were lucky.
No, they're great. I think they made me who I am today. And I like who I am today. Most people don't, but that's okay with me. Dr. Hatfill.
You think a wolf worries about what sheep think?
Absolutely not.
No.
And I have the Ma Deuce, so I'm not concerned about the wolf either. I don't give a shit. Dr. Hatfill, we got to wrap this one up. I'm
right, bro.
6 minutes late for a phone call because I'm a terrible person. Thanks for coming on, man. I love talking to you. You're a cool fucking dude, and I'll shoot you a text. And thank you, sir. We'll schedule.
Always fun, bro.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Hatfill. Guys, go grab the book. It's in the description. Till next time, Dr.